Hello, all. My name is Sara. I go by BS on Blast on the internet, and I have been covering the war in Sudan for the last 887 days.
Since it started.
Yep.
And even before that, you were doing a lot of stuff around the Sudanese revolution and the
hmm
coup.
I guess I could say I've been covering major events, major affairs in Sudan for the last almost 10 years.
God,
Yeah,
it's been a ride.
it has been.
So I guess this is the second time I have you on, or I think the third
Mhm.
time, but the second time it's just you and me, and we're just going to talk about stuff around Sudan, around online activism, around just how horrible everything has been, especially in the last few years. And so, before we get into anything specific, I want to ask you the first question I ask all my guests, which is a very difficult question. How are you?
The
Yeah.
dreaded question. Um, I'm angry, Eamon. I'm I'm angry and tired. Um, but strangely, the anger and frustration and exhaustion also has me very motivated. I think it's like a spiteful motivation. But yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, so I've been following your work and your I've been following you on several like social media accounts for the last I think few years now. But the reason that I wanted to do this interview, this discussion, to have you on, is because like a week ago or so, you released a few
hmm
stories. It was like 2 a.m. where I'm at, and I think that's like much
hmm
earlier for you.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
like
found my
afternoon
yeah,
where I am. Yeah.
and I couldn't stop. I mean, you were dropping them. That sounds so whatever. But anyway, I was just like because you were expressing so much anger
hmm
and anger that I actually hadn't seen from you before, even though everything that's happening is so infuriating, like the things on the ground. But then a lot of the stuff you were bringing in those stories was like people's reception, and especially
hmm
people who I think you phrased it really well, like put it on you that they don't care because you're not
hmm
doing enough, you're not showing us enough, that people in Sudan aren't doing enough to expose what's happening. And it's that's just super frustrating. And
For sure.
so I don't know if you felt like you got all of it out in those voice notes or if you want to talk more about it here.
Um, I think to be honest with you, recording the stories, I blacked out because I um I make it a point to be very approachable online because I know that first of all, I think the material is overwhelming. We're so inundated with tragedy that hearing about another tragedy just becomes like, oh, I don't want to do this. So, as somebody who's advocating for a tragedy or on behalf of a people going through tragedy, you're kind of forced to navigate that in a very sensitive way and be like, hey guys, don't
Yeah.
be scared. I'm going to tell you this and I'm going to be very delicate about it so that it doesn't overwhelm you, but also you need to know this. And so, and the other thing is like at the end of the day, I'm also asking for people's help. I am at the mercy of the people listening to me. So I've been very cognizant about being, like I said, approachable and fun and kind and sensitive and like not placing too much pressure on those people because for one, I get it, I get that like we were never supposed to know this much about one another. And now we do, and the world is going to hell, and it's hard. It's hard to balance all of that. But I think what frustrated me the most is after all of that sort of tiptoeing and coddling and gently caressing and all of that, to be told, it wasn't even the fact that like people were like, oh, well, we just don't know about it. People are not doing enough. It wasn't that that set me off. What set me off was a comment that basically said, well, if Sudanese people would film themselves going through this, we would be more compelled to like be shocked and care and stuff. Like it's not enough to be told about it. We want to see it,
Yeah.
just like other people are showing us. How come you're not showing us like other people are showing us? And it really upset me, not just as a Sudanese person, because the case we were talking about, I mean, the video that that comment was left on was about um Al-Marhuma Gisma Ali Umar, who was brutalized until she died by the RSF. And it was on video. The man took video of what he did to her and posted it, with all the pride in the world. And so it's like just the position that Gizmo was in. And for you to be able to fix your fingers to type that as if she can pull a phone out of her pocket while she's being brutalized, it just set me over the edge. And it upset me as a Sudanese person, but it also upset me as a human because also seeing what's happening in Gaza, and I'm seeing Palestinian journalists and citizens broadcast their tragedy. And what little that has done for them. It has become a spectacle, truly, as opposed to a catalyst to get people
Mm.
to act and stand in solidarity and all that. And I mean, not to say that people are not standing in solidarity, but there has been very little, I think, tangible, a tangible outcome for Palestinians in Gaza, right? And so, I mean, all that together and just the the years at this point of suppressing all of the frustrations just came to a head and I couldn't anymore. And really what it boils down to is it's not that you can't find the information, it's there. You were never interested in looking for it, and
Mm.
that's fine. But the projection is insulting. To project that onto the people who are carrying the burden of doing this work is incredibly insulting.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest with ourselves. It's a lot. I can't handle it right now. Cool.
Mm.
Neither can I, but I'm obligated to handle it by virtue of this being my people. I get it. But don't say, oh, well, it's just not around, or if we just had a video of it,
Mm.
maybe we would care. That's crazy to me. That's insane and very telling.
Yeah. No, and it's a projection, like you say. And when I was listening to those stories, I was also thinking of Ghazzo
Mm,
because there's ample. There's more footage, there's more
for
than we need
sure.
at all.
At
But
all.
and I think it does have that effect that people are sort of outraged by what they see. But again, it's been 2 years and it's been some of the most high definition, you know? This is like
Mm-hmm.
2025 and very, you know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
but so that kind of thing of if only we could see more, it's a
Yes.
lie. And so then projecting it, it's like to be like I sympathize so much with what you were saying because it's just
Mm-hmm.
this like what more can we show you?
Right.
But aside from that, um, the like what I've seen from a lot of Palestinians, and this goes back. I remember seeing a documentary about Jenin during the second Intifada,
Mm-hmm.
and people then saying, "Don't film us. Like, why are you filming me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're gonna die. No one's gonna care. At least allow me the dignity of not,
Of,
having people see me this
right.
way."
Right.
And so, but then on top of that, the fact that the footage of Gizmo is like filmed by the RSF, like they're film
Yeah.
and again we've seen that in Gaza. And again, and to me, the another thing that's got me all fucked up these days is what's happening in Syria and Swaido.
Mm.
Um, and some of the footage, some of the worst footage we saw out of that was from people themselves that were doing the actions
The
from the
things.
so-called
Yep.
Ministry of Defense, Ministry of
Yep.
Interior. There's this horrible footage that I think sums up so much of what's happening, wherein this militant is filming this guy sitting on the ground and asks him, "Are you Druze?" And the guy says, "I'm Syrian." And they start laughing. What do you mean Syrian? What are you? Are you
Mm.
Druze? And he's like, yeah, I'm Druze. And they shoot him. And anyway, and this doesn't have that effect. And then people still don't really get engaged by these things.
Hmm.
And it's just, we are hitting these limits of what's actionable.
Yeah.
And like, to me, and there is, I'm very aware, like you, that like it's a lot. And like, coming from Lebanon, I'm very aware that like, I don't know, a lot of focus is on Gaza, and that's very good, but with the caveats that we mentioned.
Hmm.
But yesterday and today, it's the 1 year anniversary from the pager attacks, the massacre.
Yes.
And no one knows. No one knew, like only we are marking that. Um, but for most of the people, even the people who are very, concerned, and it's become a big part of their politics these days, that's just like one of the things that have happened and whatever. It just
Hmm.
falls into the mix of it. And so Sudan, I find it so frustrating how I have seen a shift, and I want to ask you about the shifts, especially like through the work you've done, and like since you've got your ear to the ground for the last like years. But I still see it used as a kind of suffix, as a kind of addition, as a kind of free Palestine, and we're very aware. But then it's like, oh, we also have to say free Sudan. But
Hmm.
I mean, I'm just gonna say it. There's this new video essay by Lindsay Ellis, who's not a political person, but I did find something a bit frustrating that it was about Palestine, it's about Gaza, it's about specifically children in Gaza.
Hmm.
Um, but towards the end, she had like a 10-minute thing about Sudan, which is, I need to analyze it a bit more because I found it a bit gross
Mm.
because she never said Hemeti. She never said El Burhan. She never called out the UAE. She never called out.
Hmm.
And I just found that it's so late in the game to just have
Was
Sudan
it
be
just,
like, hmm,
yeah, was it just focus on like the humanitarian
yeah.
disaster? Okay, because I
Well,
have have my
because it's
thoughts on this.
yeah. Because it basically
Yeah.
it's just this thing of like her heart bleeds for Gaza, but then it's also
Hmm.
this thing of like, but there's other stuff happening as well. And it's just sort of used it as a kind of like statistical comparison of like, there's Sudan happening, and like numerically that's even worse. I don't know. I maybe shouldn't have brought that up because I don't have like a full critique of it. It just left a bitter taste in my mouth where it's like we're too late in the game for Sudan to still
Right.
be that thing of like, a caveat, like an addition to the end, and not to
A
mention,
footnote.
yeah, and not to say
Hmm.
free Sudan from the RSF. And I mean also
Hmm.
what you say in the videos from the SAF as well, from like, anyway, I've said a lot.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've been thinking about this and you get to a point where you're like, is this a conspiracy theory? Am I like thinking myself in circles right now? But I think it's two things. Number one, well, it's three things. Number one, Sudan feels complicated to people in a way that Palestine used to feel complicated to people. uh, before it was like, oh, I just really don't get it. I mean, Israelis, Palestinians, I don't understand what the problem is. It's too complicated. And now everyone has gotten on the page of like, it's not too complicated. We see it. We see what's happening. It's very clear cut. Now Sudan is being told, oh, it's just, I don't get it. It's too complicated. Why are they killing each other? I mean, I understand Palestine and Israel, they're different people, but here it's the same people killing each other. So there's that. To which I would argue, don't people kill each other everywhere? Like, hello? But anyway, um, the second tier or level is Sudan, how do I put this? Okay, I'll go to the third tier and come back to this one. The third tier is, um, you know, Sudan is in Africa, and we're so used to seeing suffering come out of Africa. Um, I think arguably what people are seeing in Palestine is like somewhat new to them because they just had never focused, right? Had never like taken the time or been exposed to this level of like the suffering of Palestinian people. Um, and so looking at seeing Palestinian people suffering in such a clear 4K way has shook people to their core. But African suffering has been everywhere forever. It's been commodified. It's been, it's every form of like message or media that you
It's been highly
wanted to give, yeah,
politicized,
has been highly politicized, right? And so
depoliticized.
people, hmm
Like as
oh
in,
yes,
it's
and
just a
oh yes,
humanitarian whatever.
for sure. And that's what I was gonna come to about, the focus. Everybody's focusing on the humanitarian crisis, and rightfully so. It is an absolute catastrophe. But to look at it in a vacuum of just like this humanitarian crisis happened because it happens in Africa, not because there are very real reasons why it's currently happening. The famine is not just a famine because Africa is a barren wasteland. It's a famine because it's a man-made famine. And it's a man-made famine because men are fighting. And men are fighting because, people are sending them guns and bullets with which to fight and with which to continue doing what they're doing. And so, like, that's to me, that's the base. That's the basic look into what's happening in Sudan beyond the intricacies of politics and and how global diplomacy like affects what's happening in Sudan right now or global affairs. Just that at the human level, this is happening because it's being made to happen, not because it is just happening intrinsically. That's not a thing and has never been a thing. But because Africa, like you said, has been, the suffering in Africa has been depoliticized for so long, people are just used to it. They're not shocked by emaciated children. They're not shocked by any of these images. So they're looking for the image that will shock them into care. Like, and well, that's why we get comments on the videos. I mean, on the videos about Gizma saying, "Oh, where's the video? Where can I find it so I can watch it?" Which is mind blowing to me because I only saw a screenshot, Amen.
Yeah.
All I saw was a screenshot, and that was enough for me.
Yeah.
So I think there's a detachment when it comes to Africa. There is a historical detachment and dehumanization that comes when it comes to Africa, but those words sound so big and also put a lot of onus on the viewer. I'm not dehumanized. I care about Gaza. I care about oppression around the world. Okay, yeah, but I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying we've all been desensitized, Africans included. It is a conscious effort to break out of that. A lot of the problems in Sudan's history, I would argue, are partly because of that desensitization. We didn't care about what's happening in Darfur because we couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And when we did, oh, it's just like Somalia. Oh, it's just like this. Oh, it's just like that. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the immediate thought process. And it's horrible, but it's the reality. You have to train yourself out of that in order to be able to truly care, in my opinion. Um, so there's also that, and that's one thing that I think people underestimate the power of that, the power of like Africa being um such a footnote and being equated with suffering for so long that it's no longer even a surprise. It's a joke. When comedians joke about the late night infomercials where it's like, for a penny a day, you too can feed this child in wherever Africa, and they bring the child and he's emaciated and there's a fly flying around his head. Like, let's be real. And that's what I was kind of saying in the story. Also, let's be real. let's examine that. Let's get out of ourselves and our feelings for a little bit and just examine why we're here. I'm not putting blame on anybody, but there's a reason why we're here. There's a reason why videos about Sudan just don't get the thing. And also there's a laziness there, which I think is probably where I wanted to go with level two, the
Level
second
two,
level
yeah.
of all of this, which is like, now I gotta look up what this is about.
Mm.
And
Got to learn these names that I can't
yeah, and these
pronounce.
hard names that I
Yeah.
can't pronounce, and I don't know. It just seems like they're all the same. Why are
Mm.
they all fighting? You know what? Let me focus on the human aspect,
Mm.
as if this is not also the human aspect. Essentially, what I'm saying is there's, again, because Africa has been painted as like the continent where bad things happen all the time, and they're used to it over there. So you'll have people uh not want to make the same effort that they would for other situations to understand, well, how did we get here? Or
Yeah.
what is our role here?
Mm.
What could be our role as Americans, as French, as whatever in this?
And then
And
also the context around it that like Sudan does not exist in a vacuum. And so then
yes.
like I think about European influence and like what's the word? Sponsoring of the Sisi regime in
Mm-hmm.
Egypt, which is just to the north, which is very allied to
Mm-hmm.
whatever, uh, very allied to Al
That,
Burhan, to Saf.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the kind of thing of Africa as quintessentially a place of suffering. And then
For
I
sure.
think of it as the Middle East, and this is why I don't use the term the Middle East, but the Middle East is quintessentially a place of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so in that same way that like it's immediately, you know, the Middle East is a sort of like I like to think of it as a fiction in the mind's eye of a white person
Yes.
imperialist.
Oh,
Like, oh,
fully.
and then I love the term peace in the Middle East
Mm-hmm.
because that doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't,
It's a jingle. It's
it's a
not
jingle,
a,
exactly.
it's not anything.
Um, and so yeah, that's why I think, I mean, so it's kind of an exception what's happened in Palestine, and in large part that ha does have to do with like Palestinian solidarity, like Palestinians themselves for the last like 40 years
Mm-hmm.
and like internationalizing the struggle. But even then I see a lot of people fall into this trap of like, I mean, it's I love that you said that like Sudan now is what Palestine used to be in terms of like framed as it's too complicated to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I find people have this inverse thing where it's like then they see it as like overly simple. And I don't like that. I
Yes.
understand as like a communications tactic of like it's actually very simple. It's not complicated. And it's like, I mean, it is all complicated. It's not complicated in the way the New York Times says that it's complicated and it's
Right.
intractable and it's 1,000-year-old conflict or whatever, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not. But especially coming from Lebanon, and especially understanding like the class dynamics, the historical dynamics, like all of it. It
Mm-hmm.
is complicated. And especially when you get to the point of, okay, I understand. Now what do we do? That is
Right.
incredibly complicated and has been a matter of discussion for decades amongst activists and revolutionaries and organizers and the like. Like just a small example, it's like we know that a lot of the regimes and states around the region are complicit and, if not complicit, complacent
Mm-hmm.
with Zionism and with Israel. And so the debate of should we first try to overthrow these regimes to then be able to support and solidarity Palestine, or do we support Palestine and try to liberate it so that we can then liberate the rest of the Arabs? Like
Right.
that's literally been a discussion for like 50, 60 years within the movements. And so it's not, oh, it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, but one thing that I think, well, two things actually. Our role in it as Americans, as Europeans, this idea. I do notice that a lot of people clock out of Sudan, clock out of Syria, clock out of a lot of places because they're like, oh, we're not directly involved
Yep.
in the way that we are in Palestine. And sure, you don't have like this White House spokesperson or whatever. It's not like, defending and whatever. But I mean, they're super
They,
involved. They've been involved
they
for
have to be.
centuries. Yeah.
They have to be. I mean, if we look at, like, I don't want to get too, tinfoil hat, but like, if we look at the global world order, like, yeah, they have to be involved. I mean, okay. Is it the difference between, how how do we categorize involvement? Is it one to one, or is it, is 2 degrees of separation too much? We're like, no, now we're no longer involved. It's like that. I think people are are looking for a way to clock out because it's too much. It's very overwhelming. But for example, yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday on Blue Sky, there was a discussion that I was brought into. I couldn't see the beginning, but basically, um, like Sudan has also all been used by Zionists or pro-Israel people to sort of dismiss the Palestinian cause. Well, look at what's happening in Sudan. Nobody cares about that because Israelis are not involved. Well, they are, but also, but
But
also that's not why.
do you know the jingle they've come up for that one?
Uh-huh.
No Jews, no news.
Oh Lord.
It's embarrassing, really. Like it's just so,
It's it is embarrassing.
and you
And
find
so
that
like
so much of, yeah, yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, I mean it's so like that has been wielded. We've been wielded as a weapon, right, against Palestine, which is terribly ironic considering the deep solidarity that exists between Sudanese and Palestinians. And I think I saw yesterday also that Palestinians sent donation money to al-Fashir, which is just absolutely incredible. It's mind-blowing. Anyway, my point is that so yesterday on Blue Sky, like I was saying, I was drawn into this discussion basically about, something like that. Well, why doesn't anybody care about Sudan, but like people care about Palestine and all of that is because Israel's not involved. And then someone responded saying, well, that's because like in the US, our tax dollars fund what's happening in Palestine right now, what's happening to Palestinians, and we are directly involved. And appreciate the argument, and I agree. But also I had to quote the Post and be like, um, but the US is also very much involved and complicit, if not partly responsible in what's happening in Sudan. Not only because they have this massive defense contract with the UAE, right? And not only because the UAE is now their closest ally, right? Or what they describe as one of their closest allies in the region, but also because the US was partly responsible for keeping Burhan al-Himiti in the position they're in right now. In the time of Trump and Biden, of them telling us, we're saying we don't want them. And they're telling us, well, do you have another choice though? You don't really have another choice. And I even posted the quote from a quote from an interview with Jeffrey Feltman, who was a previous, I think, envoy to Africa or envoy to Sudan. I'm not sure. Definitely envoy to, to the region, who was saying outright, well, in hindsight, I think we didn't really engage with civil society in a way that showed us that these military guys' intentions were wrong. They played us, which is just preposterous to say you are the global leaders and the people who have all the information about everybody. You've clocked everybody's tea. Why were these two generals able to fool you, big and bad United States administration, and not the lowly people of Sudan? How does that work?
Mm.
Not to mention, you were told.
Mm.
You didn't need to be told because all you had to hear, all you had to do was listen to the streets. The streets were telling you, who, these people are together. We don't want them. They're bad for us. They don't like us. We don't like them. They're killing us. We will not survive. But you chose to ignore that and tell us to aim lower and be reasonable because that's what suited you. That's what suited your interests and the interests of your allies. So let's not pretend, but also let's not absolve the US of its responsibility and the responsibility that it took on
Yeah.
as the, the world leaders, world police, whatever you want to call it. And even now with these negotiations from Jeddah all the way to this quad situation where you're like, okay, first of all, first of all, there are no Sudanese representatives at these talks, which is
Mm.
interesting. Even if it is SAF and the RSF, shouldn't they be in the room to discuss?
The
Cool.
Quad is Saudi, Egypt.
Saudi, Egypt, the US, the UK.
Oh, the UAE isn't involved in the Quad?
Oh, sorry. The Saudi, Egypt, the UAE, the US. My bad.
Okay. It's an interesting Quad because they are,
It's a very interesting
yeah.
quad, and I think, please don't quote me on this, but I am almost sure that at one point it was US, UK, UAE, Saudi,
Mm.
and now it's changed somewhat, but please don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Maybe that's again my tinfoil brain doing its thing. Anyway, these 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 countries got in a room and talked about what they envisioned for Sudan's future, like Sudan's peace, without asking Sudanese people, without having the two warring parties, even though my Sudanese people hate that term, but they are
Hmm.
they're literally the two warring parties, without having them in the room, and then having the UAE there as a mediator.
Hmm.
As like a neutral party that is discussing this for the sake of Sudan is crazy work. It's wild. It's offensive,
Hmm.
especially when your own administrations have admitted to the lengths to which the UAE is involved and responsible for what's happening in Sudan. And then you have this quad come up with a 9 month no, sorry, a 3 month truce or something, followed by a 9 month transition to
That's a
form a
trigger.
civilian government.
That's a triggering term, isn't it?
Like,
Yeah.
we had a whole revolution. It took 4 years of transition to get nowhere.
Mhm.
What is 9 months going to do? That was my first thought. But anyway, what's offensive and insulting about this is that to me, and I had to ask the question, I'm caveat, disclaimer, I am not a political analyst. I'm a regular citizen, right? This is my regular citizen brain at work. I'm not claiming to be any sort of like whiz kid with the politics. But my first question was, we now have two governments. We
Yeah.
have SAF in Port Sudan, and we have what they call Ta'sis, which is the RSF's newly formed government in Niala, in Darfur. So when you talk about a 9 month transition to civilian rule, who are you talking to? What like I read the agreement and I just was like, I literally don't get it. Who are we talking about? Are we talking about Tassis? Are we talking about Port Sudan? Are we talking about them both coming together and making a new transitional government to move towards a civilian government? What are we talking about?
It's a fiction. It just feels like it's either they don't know or there's just a lie to sort of establish what's already been conquered through war.
And it's in the same way that you say, you know, like you said, it's not complicated, but it is.
Mm.
It's complicated, but this is making it somehow uncomplicated, but like taking out 90% of the complication and focusing on 10 is kind of like that doesn't simplify things, it just makes it even more complicated.
I
So,
mean,
yeah,
that kind of reminds me of just like the last 30 years of talking about the two-state solution in Palestine, where it's like that's not really addressing what's in the room. And that's, I think, become very, very clear. And I
right.
don't understand. I just genuinely don't understand when people say the two-state solution, what they mean, where,
Yeah.
what Palestine, like what state, if like
Hmm.
if they're not going to stop the settlements in the West Bank, if they're not going to like expel the illegal settlements that already exist, and that means like at this point, like between 500,000 to a million Israeli settlers,
Right.
like it's just, and then it's going to be a demilitarized state. So it's like what, but the main person, the main group, the main party who would have to have the kind of okay, they're not doing it. They're doing the complete opposite. They're
Right.
accelerating the settlement and the annexation of the West Bank. And so it just feels like a fiction that I don't know. It does
It's a
boggle my
fiction that
mind.
we are all made to buy into, I think is also the
Yeah.
even more insulting part is like we're being forced to see this as the only viable option, even though there are gaping holes in it.
Mm.
Like, oh no, 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 disregard those. This is the only option. And for me, the quad situation right now, the quad suggestion proposal is that ignore all that. We're talking about this. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, this is your only viable option. Okay,
But what
how do
is
you
it?
apply that?
Yeah, how do you
Exactly,
apply
what
it?
is
But
that?
what is it? And what do you um and especially the contradictions and hypocrisies within it because and I don't know, yeah, it's like a repeat of history.
Hmm.
I do remember like following the revolution and the coup and everything and being like there is like a cyclical, oh now okay, this is a transition and now it just um it's absolutely absurd. And yeah, the fact that
It
there
is.
are other choices, but they're completely ignored and have been ignored. And like there's a reason that every time I talk about Sudan, to people who don't know that much, I constantly talk about the resistance committees and the emergency rooms and just like the civil society, but also like the revolution and the revolutionaries and people because partly it demonstrates the fact that, yeah, the Quad, the international community, all these people are ignoring the biggest thing about Sudan and then ignoring the third option, let's call it. Um, but also, I think it returns some agency. Like it's not just a humanitarian catastrophe. It's like a political economic move to crush a revolution, to crush these people, because it's like
Sure.
because if there's one thing that Al Burhan and Hemeti agree on, it's that like fuck the civilians. We don't want a
Right.
civilian ruled whatever. Like that's why they were in power together before they started fighting, because they've got differences, but the similarities is is just that. And so
Hmm.
it's not just there are these, you know, kind of ignorant, innocent people who are just there and they're caught up in this political machinations. Like, no, there are people who are fighting for their own, I mean, sovereignty and independence and I don't know, I'm not going to summarize the
Yeah.
entire demands of the revolution, but like so and so I think that potentially helps people understand this as a political thing. And
Hmm.
within a kind of internal to Sudan, but also there's been a lot of discussions and framings of what's happening in Sudan of the war as a proxy war, and there's a part of
Hmm.
that for sure. And here I think also might help people understand like the US's role, but also like capitalism's role, like corporations, like who is literally making money and wants to continue making money and so wants to continue supporting this genocide. Whether
Hmm.
it's like gold that the UAE is extracting, not extracting, it's like getting,
Right.
um, or then now, yeah, I mean, all the stuff about like gum Arabic that's in Mars Confectionery. It is one of the biggest
Hmm.
food producers in the world, and so I don't know. I see a lot of similarities that are kind of ignored, like the calls to boycott products that support. Israel and support Zionism and that have factories in the West Bank, for instance, that's oftentimes not applied. That people call, but like again, I'm gonna call this person out, even though this isn't like a massive platform where it's like, hashtag Lebanese podcaster destroys Bassem Youssef. But Bassem Youssef is doing a
Mm,
performance in
in
Dubai.
Dubai.
I mean, to make it doubly absurd, in the Coca-Cola arena. But regardless, I mean, Bassem Youssef, any of us who have known him for longer than since that one interview with Pierce Morgan, like in
Hmm.
November, which I will admit was good, but then we remembered when he then went on
Right.
to do the second one and it was like buddy buddy with Pierce Morgan. We're like, oh, right, this is why we don't like
Oh,
him. Yeah, yeah.
right.
This
Yeah.
is why he was irrelevant for the last 10, 15 years. But so there is like a potential for boycotting that I think people ignore with Sudan. But because with Sudan and with Africa as a whole, we're getting to the heart of it's not just these specific companies, it's like so much of the supply chain of capitalism, which I think for
Hmm.
people fries their brain. Because again, it's not just what is the Biden administration and now the Trump administration doing, but what has Europe and the US for centuries, how have they exploited Africa and
Hmm.
extracted and continue to extract and my God,
Hmm.
it's yeah.
Well, what I think is really interesting about the boycott argument, which I've seen a lot of sort of the comments that I'll say I get. I won't speak in for the group, but a lot of the comments I get are, well, why isn't there a boycott strategy like for Palestine? Why isn't there a BDS type thing for Sudan? You guys really should be getting on that. That should be your next move instead of just talking about. I got a specific comment that said, we hear a lot about the humanitarian crisis, but what is actually being done to boycott the people responsible? Not to mention that there has been a boycott campaign for Sudan for a very long time. Sudanese people have been calling for people to boycott travel to the UAE and boycott UAE products and UAE gold because it's coming from Sudan. Besides that, I think it's very interesting when people bring up that argument of boycotting because boycotting has also proven it's working better, but boycotting is very difficult for people.
Mm.
You mean I can't have Starbucks anymore? And then post-election here in the US, you saw the wave of people going back on their boycott and take going back to all these establishments that they had previously boycotted out of spite, out of like, punishment.
Really?
Well, we lost the election, so we're gonna go back to doing our thing and eating our McDonald's and
Ugh.
drinking our Starbucks and we don't care anymore. So boycotting is really it's a fickle strategy for to me for affecting change. I think it can be very powerful, but I think people we live in a world where convenience is king, and it is
Yeah.
very difficult to get people to stick to a boycott. Now, when you think about what that means for Sudan, if I tell you you got to boycott makeup, pharmaceuticals, food, because all of that is gum Arabic and the majority of it is coming from Sudan. What are you going to do? Right? It's a nice thing to throw out there because people think they have to boycott one or two things. To me, I compare the the boycotting issue. Sudan and Congo are closer to me
Mm.
than Sudan and Palestine on this front because Sudan and Congo offer essential things to our world today, to our lives today. You want the new iPhone. They're telling you Congolese children are being exploited and enslaved to get the minerals that you need to get your new iPhone. Please buy refurbished. But I want the new
Mm.
iPhone. But it's got a cool camera, right? Like there I need a new laptop because I need it for work. these are we're now touching really deep, intimate parts of people's lives by
Mm.
calling on them to boycott these things. So it's just not feasible.
And then,
I'm gonna feign ignorance now
yeah,
because I can't. You're affecting my life.
yeah.
Maybe I don't like coffee anyway, so I can boycott Starbucks and it's fine. It doesn't matter to me. I can say I'm boycotting Starbucks, but I've never been there. But I have a phone and I have a laptop and I need those things to survive in today's world.
And that's literally true. Like those are necessities in terms of not just the
Yeah,
latest iPhone, but you need to have smart
you need to
technology
have
to
technology.
access.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the one example for me that frustrates me is something like Airbnb, which I've noticed that, I mean, Airbnb has been very established like within the BDS stuff.
Hmm.
But it's like, wait, well, you want me to get a hotel? But this is nicer. I want to go to Nice and I want to be in the
Right.
city and stuff. And it's like, so it starts to get to that point. I mean, so there is a necessity argument in terms of, for instance, I live in Vienna and there aren't really small stores. There's only really like the bigger supermarkets. And so it's like
Hmm.
to boycott them and I see they're selling Israeli products and like Israeli dates. And for some reason, Israeli barillo, like the pasta, I
The
don't know why that's,
pasta,
yeah, yeah, it's made in Israel. Like it literally has the logo of the Israeli state, like the
that's
Ministry of
going out
Agriculture.
of your way.
Austria in a lot of ways is behind in a lot of this stuff where like it's like all these people are like boycotting and so it's like, oh, we'll sell to them. But
Mm,
regardless. But so it's but I don't have any other option. Like I don't buy the Barillo, but I buy
right.
the pasta next to it, and I'm still kind of supporting the whole thing. And either
Hmm.
way, the whole thing of capitalism, it's hard to boycott the whole of it. But then the other part of it is the convenience, which I really want to get into because I think you talked about it in your videos, in your stories, because it's not just convenience as consumers, or it is about convenience as consumers, but then there's also that assumption of like what you're, for instance, presenting on Instagram and on social media is something to consume. And people
Yes.
want that convenient, tell it to us straight, like, Khalto Sara, like sit down with us,
Hmm.
tell us about this, and tell us, and like frame it in a way where I can understand and that it's only within 2 minutes. Like you said this specifically, and I was like, damn, damn, because especially as people, as like someone else who's like doing this stuff as well, where like I'm trying to explain things that are like I'm in the shit, so I can talk about the complexity of it, and but I'm aware that for most people, like it's like between complicated and simple, but they haven't heard my version of complicated as in like someone who's
Hmm.
actually from there and who
Right.
has like a leftist analysis of like the many different power structures. Um, and so there it gets a bit frustrating because I think it connects with what you were saying about the laziness, where it's like, why aren't you making this more convenient for me as opposed to God, like then the person themselves doing the work of like, I need to break out of this mode of convenience because I think
I
convenience
need
is
to
going to
crack
kill
open a
us.
book. Right.
Crack open a book, dude. I mean, I don't like to toot my own horn, but when I was first, I think 6 years ago, 5 years ago, doing my initial research on Sudan, like just after the revolution, or I think after what's it called? I stumbled upon your podcast. I think this is how I first learned about you and your work. Your podcast called No Sir, No Ma'am.
Mm, good
And
times.
good time. But, and I mean this in no like disrespect at all, but it was not a convenient thing for someone who doesn't know
No.
much. No, it
Yeah.
was just you and one other person, another Sudanese woman talking about stuff. And it wasn't like, and you jump between English and Arabic and like sort of jokes, specific things about this one politician who was on TV that like I would have no way of knowing.
Right.
But what I did, and I think it's something that I like recommend for people, is like I put myself aside for a second because I mean, and I'm not most people listening to this stuff, like I'm not American, I'm not whatever, I'm not white, but it's like I am not at the center of this discussion. There is stuff
Hmm.
that I don't know, and it's not just, and even the way of knowing, like going in and looking at Sudan, okay, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, but then, or like listening to just you two talk, discovering where the priorities are at, where the discussions are at, what are important within those discussions or whatever. And so doing that for a little bit until then I can sort of engage and like I think
Hmm.
that's something that people have a very hard time doing, which is
Yeah.
genuinely listening in on a discussion that doesn't immediately concern them. And that's how you form allyship or camaraderie.
Hmm.
Because like I don't like you don't need to find yourself in a thing to be able to empathize or to be able to then be engaged with it. Like I don't have to see where's Lebanon's role in Sudan or something to be like
Right.
that's my interest in it. Um, with that said, actually, and just to finish on that point, I think part of the reason why for me Sudan was something that I really wanted to get a grip with and to understand more is because there's the Arabic connection, there's this Muslim connection, right?
Hmm.
But it's peripherized, you know? And so it's that kind of thing of within us, but also those people who are pushed outside because they're not
Yes.
really Arab or whatever. And then
Yes.
obviously there's a whole conversation there within Sudan for sure. Um, that then I was like, okay, I need to put aside a kind of Arab centricism to listen, to understand, and whatever.
Hmm.
I don't know. That was a whole thing and a half. I'm sorry, but
No, I mean, I'm so glad you brought it up because I, first of all, agree wholeheartedly. I think at the root of it, it's not only this hyper individualism of like, I want to know how I'm personally involved. It's also just a breakdown in basic basic learning skills, like listening comprehension.
mm,
Like not just listening comprehension, but listening all the way through, period. You know, my favorite example for this is someone asking you a question that's already been answered in the video they're watching, right? I think it's that. It's like people are not focused on what they're listening to or watching, and they also are so accustomed to getting everything, all the information in one in the same thing, right?
yeah,
In the video, in the whatever, in the post. So if they don't have all the information, either they consider what they just watched or read all of the information, or they don't have the full picture and they don't go look for the full picture.
mm,
They assume it as unavailable completely anywhere else because I didn't find it right here. So, I think I think we've lost that art of like, we've also lost the art of curiosity,
oof,
of like,
yeah,
I want to look more into that. Oh, what is that about? We've lost that completely. And also the shift in like learning becoming gamified education, becoming edutainment. That like,
yeah,
if it's not fun, I don't want to learn it. It's not
yeah,
worth learning. It's like if it's, this is a bummer. I don't want to watch this anymore. And there are times where that is the case. Like I'm not excluding myself from the group. There are times where I'm like, this is heavy
mm,
and I don't have the brain space for it. But I think the danger becomes when you're actually interested in the thing, but you can't put in the effort to search more, you know, to dive in
mm,
to that thing that you are admittedly interested in, but you still want the convenience of getting all of it at once in a very palatable, easily absorbed, easily consumed way. I think that's unrealistic. It's
yeah.
unrealistic. So like
And that's definitely
if
like
I
it's like in the structure of Instagram, for instance.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I mean, that's part of the algorithm. The fact that the algorithm doesn't let you, that will not push a video that's more than 3 minutes
yeah, you
long.
mentioned that. Yeah, yeah.
That was such a shock to me. But then I wasn't surprised because for a while I was getting messages saying 6 minutes is too long. Maybe if you cut down your videos. Wow,
Mm,
6 minutes is too long to listen to. Okay. Um, to me, I think I've seen this the most with, for example, I lay out all the things. Here's this video. It doesn't have all the information.
Mm.
Just so you know, you can find more here, here, and here. I've compiled this, this, and that. Here's some other people who are talking about different things other than me that you can also learn from. And that becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Your resources have too many things in them, so can you just answer my question about this one specific thing?
Mm.
It's again, it goes all the way back to like we said, this like culture of convenience. I want everything, but I want it now and I want it easy and I want it simple and fun. Don't
And I
forget
want
fun.
I want it.
And yes,
So that's
it.
what I'm saying about with like no sir, no ma'am, where it's like I don't know. So let's
Hmm.
like go into a room, just listen, and it's like like I think what we've lost is the no, we've lost. I think this has always been a problem, is like the ability to to accept your ignorance. I think people have this like it's sort of constantly moving,
Hmm.
like our attempts to see patterns and to understand. And so then like looking into Sudan is like I already know some stuff. I know so, and this goes way back to what we were saying at the beginning. I know about Africa. And then this is like when it gets like ideological, like people don't know that they're thinking this. It's not
Hmm.
active, but it's like war in Sudan, where it's like, oh, but hasn't there always been war there? It's like,
Right.
well, no, because that's actually this and that. And it's like, oh, I'm thinking of, I don't know, Rwanda. I'm thinking of South Sudan. I'm
Hmm.
thinking of something else. Um, but yeah, on top of that, AI, like the sort of these language models, now it's like embedded in Google.
Hmm.
Um, and I've been dealing with this for a decade, and it makes people make me out to be like some boomer, wherein like I'm talking to someone and I'm like, this happened, and then they Google it and they're like, no, it didn't. Look at this, and I'm like,
No.
you just read the highlighted bit from the thing
Right.
it gave you, but if you read the rest of it, you'll see that no,
You'll see.
it's yeah, it's saying what I'm saying. You just need
Hmm.
to spend a second, um,
Yeah.
and ultimately, to care. Um, I'm trying as hard as possible to not scroll on Instagram because I'm realizing one effect that that has within this sort of fucked up world is the desensitization period. Um, and it's like you go into a hole and you're like, sorry, I don't know if that connection makes sense to people, but basically, like when I spend
Hmm.
too much time on Instagram, I generally feel less of a human. Like when you
Yeah.
like 30 seconds of this, 10 seconds of this, 5 seconds just scrolling. And so ultimately you cease to like care about any one thing,
You
um,
become detached.
from reality,
Hmm.
from life. And I think that is at the core of the stories you posted, that frustration where and I remember I did an episode of this podcast a year ago titled, Is It Impossible to Make People Care?
Mm.
Because you can convince people of stuff, you can share new facts, you can provide new resources, but to take someone from a place of, I just don't care about that, I don't care about African lives, I don't care about Black lives, I don't care about uh, the complexities of whatever, to take them, or I'm, in so many of these
Hmm.
cases, to take them from that to then know you should care, it
Yeah,
it's very difficult. And I think that was some of
it
the
is.
like the basis of your frustration of like these people who come and ask these questions. It's like, and their laziness, their whatever, their projections, like
It's
yeah,
energy wasted because ultimately this person does not really care. This person is looking for a reason to excuse their lack of care.
yeah,
But I'm engaging with every single moment like this as a genuine moment of I want to learn more. And it's incredibly taxing and then incredibly frustrating when you realize, oh, this doesn't matter because this person is not even ever coming back here for
mm,
the answer. So, yeah. And I will say, uh, to be fair, because I feel like people are very sensitive when you discuss things like that because they consider that like we are like I said before, excluding ourselves from the group, or like there's this exceptionalism, like where we, the people going through strife, are exceptional in the way that we are able to care more than people who have not experienced that. And I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in this, within Sudanese circles, we are facing the same apathy. We are facing the same. Now, the reasons might be different. The apathy might be coming from trauma, it might be coming from despair, it might be coming from genuine, like, I don't give a damn. That's also there. But there are other reasons besides I'm ignorant about this thing and I don't really care to know. But it's there, but it's still there, and the effect is still the same,
Yeah.
where you feel like you're screaming into a void, or you're talking to people who are not, you're spending all this energy trying to convince people that are never going to be convinced. And so the question for me becomes, well, how do you tell the difference? What do you do as a person advocating for a place or a people? How do you manage that? How do you determine not who's worth talking to and who's not, but how do you determine where to focus and spend your energy? I
Mm.
think that's a question that I have not reached an answer to yet.
No, I think a lot of us that are sort of trying to talk about these things with the nuance of the reality find ourselves there. Like I find myself making a video and then deleting it because I'm like, is this a necessary thing to say at this moment? Like I think it's true,
Mm,
but is this going to be read in a way that like corresponds with,
right.
is this necessary to say? Is the discussions that's going to come from it the things that I think needs to happen? Um, and it's very difficult. I don't think anyone really has that answer.
Yeah.
Um, because again, like going back to the very beginning, talking about imagery and taking images and sharing them, there's that discussion again of like even like this feels natural, like to allow people to bear witness at the
Hmm.
very least. But then again, yeah, we see that thing of like it's not enough, and it does have that de-dignifying thing, and I don't know, it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
I guess, I mean, what I'd want to know or what I'd like to ask you is like, what do you have in line with politically depressed with the whole thing of like, do you have any, I don't know, how do you decompress? Because all this is so frustrating, not just like the thing in itself, like the realities on the ground in Sudan, the political machinations around it, but then also all of this bullshit with the algorithm, with people, and
Mm.
um, I don't know, like,
That's a question on the level of how are you?
yeah,
Where I'm like, I have no idea how to answer that. Um, I will say that I don't think I ever fully decompress.
no,
I don't think I ever reach the point where I feel relaxed. I think it's hard to reach that point when you're so deeply involved in the advocacy work. The deeper you are into it, the more regular you are with it, the harder it is to detach from it. But I mean, I don't know. Are these platitudes if I just say like, "Oh, I read. I listen to music." I don't know. I mean, I do those things
mm,
in an effort to decompress. But are they effective? Partially, maybe. Um, but I think one of those things, like, it's one of those things where it's very hard to detach yourself, especially when you have a direct stake in what's happening.
yeah,
Like, if I am advocating for a place I am not from, I think it might be, I'm not speaking from experience. I'm just saying, if I am advocating at this level for a place that I'm not from, or not directly connected to, it might be easier to decompress, to take a break sometimes, to, do something else to get yourself to fill your cup, as they say. But where I am right now, to decompress, to fully detach from Sudan is to live in guilt
Yeah.
for me.
Mm.
Because you can't, because this is the environment that you're in. I'm not in Sudan, but I am in a Sudanese household where all we talk about is this, and not necessarily in the like lofty political discussions, but like the day-to-day of like how are our relatives
Mm.
surviving. So it's difficult to decompress. It's difficult to detach.
Well, I guess then it's the question of is there a way to decompress without detaching?
The reading and the listening of
The
the
reading and listening,
music.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And the
I
spending
that's
time with
really where we're.
family. I mean, it's
Yes,
because there
yeah.
is still one thing that was very rare within those stories is you talked about your family
Hmm.
and the sort of like the state that everyone is in,
Yeah.
and your parents. And so, I mean, I think of this sometimes where it's like, as a Lebanese person, I do have some things that I do. I do this type of work, I do other work and organizing work, but there's also just that very grounded thing where it's like talking to my parents and taking care of
Hmm.
them, and they're not doing great, but like there's a sort of, you know what I mean? It doesn't even
Yeah.
bear mentioning because it's so
Yeah.
subsumed, but the kind of emotional um, solidarity or whatever,
Hmm.
and support. But then I get stuff from it too, that like with
Hmm.
things that my mother says to me, or then like spending time with her, the times that I do get to because she's in Lebanon. Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
yeah,
you get it where you can fit it in, is really what it is. You try your best to get those pockets of like rest or
mm,
at this point, honestly, normalcy.
yeah,
I think I think the routine of like, okay, it's time to make dinner or I have this errand to run or that errand to run are the times where I am at my most quote unquote relaxed
mm,
because I'm focused on a different task that feels like regular life
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
when the rest
actually,
of my life feels nothing, not even close to regular.
yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought this up as we're wrapping up because I cook almost every day, um, and I think of it in the same way, where this
Hmm.
is a sort of a moment for myself. Sometimes I'll put something on to watch. Sometimes I'll listen to something. Sometimes I'll just do it in silence. But
Hmm.
like there's something about like I think my mother taught this to me, um as a kind of Zen, almost like meditative thing, where
Mm.
like I'm cutting an onion and I'm really cutting the onion. And I'm thinking about the knife going in or
Right.
whatever. Or then if I'm like grinding, not grinding, what's the word? The like I'm beating,
Pounding.
yeah, some like
Yeah.
garlic and ginger.
Oh yeah, like mincing garlic or ginger or
Yeah,
something.
but like with a
Hmm.
mortar and pestle.
Yeah.
So like the different activities, the different physicalities of it, there's a sort of, you know what I mean? Like the pounding of it, the
Yeah.
slicing, I don't know.
It keeps you in the moment
Yeah,
as opposed to like a secondary action
yeah,
that you're doing while your brain is thinking about something else.
yeah. And that's why sometimes another thing I do is like to just listen to music. I think
Hmm.
there's something about the fact that music has become a background thing to accompany other actions, I think has a weird effect on us. And I think
Hmm.
just actually sitting down and doing nothing but just like listening to a song has a sort of meditative thing. I don't know, and it sort of
For
grounds you a
sure.
bit. Because ultimately we are just talking about moments and like clocking those
Yes.
moments and being like, because there's not a good state on the horizon, like of a general goodness.
Hmm.
Um, and aside from that, I remember from our last conversation, I think we had a similar thing wrapping up, and I think I mentioned, or I think you might have mentioned, um, the analogy of a shark. Sharks can't stop swimming. Even
Hmm.
when they're sleeping, they're slightly gliding,
Right.
and that's sort of what it feels like. You can't stop. You sort of have to at least like, even if it's 10%, there's always a bit moving.
Yep. Yep.
So, okay. We covered quite a lot.
Hmm.
Um, is there anything that you want to plug here towards the end? I mean, you do fundraisers constantly. Is there anything you're working on now that you want people to like? I can put it in the show notes, of course.
Um, I would just encourage people to give whatever little they can, uh, wherever they can, whether it's to any of the organizations that are linked in my link tree, which is across all of my different platforms, or to me. I mean, I hesitate to say to me, but because it feels gross and wrong. But I do handle a lot of like not individual, I mean, sometimes individual fundraisers, things for little needs for people, students who need help with fees, people who need help with healthcare or evacuation funds, small evacuation funds. Um, and occasionally, emergency response rooms will reach out to me for a specific task that they have. Like right now, I am trying to raise funds for an elder in Al-Meram in West Kordofan. So the Al-Meram emergency response room reached out to me, telling me the story of this woman who she fled Khartoum and lost her entire family in the process. And nobody knows how she was able to make it to Al-Meram alive. But she came and then with nothing. And so she's been hosted by folks from the community. She's living with strangers from the community. And now they're trying, because they haven't found any living relatives for her, they're trying to build her own home um, in the, in this area. So they reached out to me asking for help to buy, the building supplies. So that's what I'm trying to work on right now. So just to say that if you ever feel compelled to send me funds, those funds are not going to me personally. They will always be going to some need somewhere, somebody affected, not my personal pocket.
Well, يعطيك ألف عافية. Um, Honestly, you do incredible work, and I hope that you continue to have the energy to be able to do this.
Hey, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I hope so. And actually what I actually hope for is that this nightmare just miraculously ends
Yeah.
and none of us have to do this work.
No, yeah. Inshallah. Well, thank you so much, Sara, for joining us today.
Thank
Uh,
you, Amen. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and it always feels like a decompression session,
oh,
honestly, when I'm on here. So
okay,
I'm
very good.
grateful to you for that.
That's I might use that as a blurb somewhere.
For
The-
sure. It's true. It's 100% true.
So okay. Thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you all in the next one then.